Communications, CUIT 112. In one day you wake up and your phone is not working. You try to switch on the TV, it's dead. You check with your friends or your neighbor and all their devices are also not working. You eventually discover that every computer in the world is suddenly dead. What would life become? Unbearable, I know. So, how many things in this picture do you think are computers? What is a computer? A computer is an electronic device that stores, accepts data, retrieves data, processes data, and gives output according to a set of instructions. A computer system consists of hardware and software. And hardware is the physical parts of a computer or the components that you can feel and touch and see. Software are the set of programs running on the hardware which direct the computer to perform specific operations. An information system is an interconnected environment for managing and processing data using computers. These are the parts of an information system: people, hardware, software, procedures, data. Information technology, or IT, is a specific term that stresses the role of unified communications and telecommunications. For example, computers, software, hardware, and everything that is used to access, store, transmit, and manipulate information. Information communication technology, or ICT, is a generic name used to describe a range of technologies for gathering, storing, retrieving, processing, analyzing, and transmitting information. The role of information systems and information technology in organizations: administration, accounting, communication, engineering, tourism, hospitality. These are some yours. ICT in a business environment can be used for recording data, storing data, manipulating data, and retrieving data. These are the current trends in ICT: cloud computing, mobile computing, big data analytics, robotic automation, artificial intelligence, smart machines, machine learning. And emerging trends include virtual reality, augmented reality, blockchain, cybersecurity, Internet of Things, drones, edge computing, quantum computing, 3D printing, 5G, among others. I want you to look at these questions and study them at your own time. How can information technology and information systems be used in your field of study? What are some of the obstacles hindering the effective use of ICTs in your field of study? How can these obstacles be overcome? Let's talk about the history of computers briefly. The history of computers is best described through computer generation. Computer generations classify computers based on the major technological changes that have distinguished computers through time. As of 2021, we have 5 computer generations. The first generation was in the 1940s to 1956, and it was characterized by vacuum tubes, which occupied a lot of space. An example of a machine in the first generation is the ENIAC. It had 20,000 vacuum tubes, 10,000 capacitors, 70,000 resistors, and it weighed over 30 tons. It occupied 1.5 square feet. It was very huge. And then in the second generation, that is from 1956 to 1963, the key characteristics of computers, the key characteristic of computers at that time was the transistor. And it made computers smaller, faster, cheaper, and less heavy on electricity use. And it enabled computers to store instructions into their memories and use high-level programming languages. An example of a machine from the second generation is the IBM 7090. Its operating system was tape-based, and it required 8 magnetic tape drives to run and had to be booted from a card reader. In the 1964 to 1971 was the third generation, and the key characteristic there was the integrated circuits. Transistors were now put on one silicon chip. So that is what brought the name integrated circuit. It means there were a lot of circuits on one chip. So this resulted in a massive increase in speed and efficiency, and computers became even cheaper and smaller. An example of a computer from that generation is the IBM 360. It could add 16.6 million editions per second, and it used magnetic tapes for storage. Then in the 1972 to 1980s, the microprocessor was designed, and all computer components were put onto one single chip. An example of a machine in that generation is the IBM 4341. Computers now became available for home use and could fit in the palm of a hand, and this reduced power and cooling requirements and facilitated networking and magnetic disk storage. We are in the fifth generation, that was from 1981, the generation of artificial intelligence. Computer devices with artificial intelligence are still in development. Ultra large-scale integration is one key characteristic. We're saying there are loads and loads, thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of components can be found on a chip. An example is a Chromebook, a laptop that have at least 2 gig RAM. Now let's talk about computer types. Computers can be classified by size and power. We have a supercomputer that is the fastest and most expensive, and it's big. It's got a lot of processors or CPUs that can solve one big problem. An example is the Fugaku and the K computer. This is a supercomputer. Then we have a mainframe. It's a bit smaller than a supercomputer. The difference is that the supercomputer uses all its power to run few tasks, whereas a mainframe performs thousands and millions of operations concurrently. And the mainframe is mainly used by organizations, large organizations, for bulk data processing like sensors, consumer statistics, and more. This is a mainframe. Then we have a server. A server is a central computer that contains collections of data and programs. It can be also called a network server because it connects several users or several computers on a network. For example, file servers and application servers. An example of a server there. Station. This is a high-end, expensive computer made for more complex procedures like science, maths, and engineering calculations, intended for one user at a time. That's a workstation example. A personal computer, I'm sure you're familiar with this one. It can also be called a microcomputer. It's cheap and for personal use. For example, desktops and laptops, gaming machines. Personal computer there. And we have a microcontroller, which can also be called an embedded system. For example, the computer in your Then a smartphone. Did you know that your smartphone is a computer? Yes, it is an operating system, for example iOS or Android. And smartphones are faster and they process a lot of data, even though they are small. That's a smartphone there.